Welcome to a kind of continuation of the series, but this is different. No sooner had I started the ending of the China's Modernization series that I got to see concrete evidence of this modernization in action. February the 5th, Guangdong held the third High Quality Development Conference, starting with a plenary session in the morning, and some of the recent achievements were highlighted. For example, this is almost unbelievable to me. In 2024, the added value of smart robots in Guangdong increased by 32.9%. High-end equipment manufacturing industry clusters, that's factory units, increased by 6.4%. Artificial intelligence is hugely topical right now, and although Guangdong isn't exactly famous for this, it's definitely a very big part of the province's growth, and the industry scale of that reached 180 billion RMB. In both computing power and industrial scales, Guangdong ranks among the top in the country. This means there's as much work or more going on AI here in Guangdong than almost anywhere else. China's become the world's largest producer of industrial robots, and about half of them are made in Guangdong province. In 2024, the output of industrial robots in Guangdong alone increased by 31.2%. Now, I know I'm a little biased about Guangdong. It's a place I've grown to love. I've adopted it as my permanent home, and it's also a place that's adopted me. So it's nice to see the province doing well. The meeting purpose, the one that we're talking about now, was to confirm the province's dedication not just to development, but to high quality development. Another aspect of the modernization that I didn't discuss is the change from standard goods to high-end manufacturing. Guangdong has always, at least in modern times, been known as the manufacturing hub of the world. Historically, there's evidence of a great deal of trade on the old maritime Silk Road going in and out of what we used to know as Canton, the capital of Guangdong province, better known nowadays as Guangzhou. This has been going on for ages, but since then, a lot has changed. Now, I'm not talking about the Opium Wars or anything like that, but China went through a devastating occupation. The Japanese invaded and occupied much of eastern China, including the area where I live, so trade with the outside world was curtailed by that. The Second World War happened, and then the Civil War. We all know about this. The People's Republic of China formed in a chaotic and impoverished time. But China still managed to get some great things done, and one of them was the resilience that they demonstrated to come back. In 1979, when reform and opening was underway, Guangdong was still very poor. Many of its people were ill-educated, its manufacturing was backward, but what did they do? They worked with the developed world, and they took in the jobs that the developed world didn't want. They took the most polluting, dirty, and menial jobs, and the people of China worked through this period with diligence and ambition, an ambition that they knew in the long run would prevail and be back where they had once been, at the top of global leadership in manufacturing. That's where they are now. That's how important this conference is. It's part of the process of change has been the process of improvement. We already know that pollution has been virtually eliminated, but not because, like other Western countries, China sent it overseas to harm poorer countries, but because they've developed better and cleaner ways of doing what they always did. They've also diversified away from old-style manufacturing to automation, high technology, and clean energy sources. Even as recently as 20 years ago, Guangdong was home to low-tech, in some cases low-quality, and in many cases low-cost manufacturing. That was what the West demanded of them, but what they demanded of themselves was different. And this conference is a perfect example of it. There were hundreds of factories in Guangdong making shoes, sweaters, jeans, sportswear, and there still are a few. There were tens of thousands of employees engaged in these low-cost, low-tech jobs. But all that's changed. Even the factories that still make low-tech products do so now in high-tech ways. But the diversification into really high-tech products is what's driven the greatest changes. communications, electric vehicles, power storage for them, cameras, drones, automation, biomedical, many, many more. Guangdong now leads the world. Not just China, Guangdong. High quality education is a huge part of it, and this is discussed at these meetings. What will be the needs of the future, and how best can they provide them? Currently, on the world ranking of universities, China has 203 in the top 1,000 and 13 in the top 100. 20 years ago, we'd have been hard-pressed to have found one of China's best universities in that list. And for the record, there are only 183 US universities in the same list. Although, to be fair, the US still outranks China in 16 of the top 20. We've seen the results of China's improvements in education. They mean improvements in every other area. China's STEM graduates are likely to outnumber the US by 2 to 1 this year. And that can only mean one thing. China's high technology fields, which have already surpassed the USA and the rest of the world, will leap even further ahead. Chatham House is notoriously anti-China think tank, but it generously suggests that China now keeps pace with or possesses the technological edge. China is increasingly a technological leader rather than a follower, they say, and more than capable of innovation. I personally think this is a damning indictment of how wrong they've been in the past. It's not like China just suddenly leapt ahead. China's been working towards it for a generation, but they, particularly in America and the UK, in their arrogance, have ignored this. While the US passes legislation to discourage direct foreign investment into China, China welcomes it, and conferences like this are where investors who are in the know look for guidance. Despite what some Western media might tell us, China is still one of the world's top destinations for foreign investment. The only thing is that less of it is coming from the US, as their own government creates instability that makes US investments overseas uncertain. As far as decoupling, which it appears the US would very much like to do, the Chinese government is finding out that dealing with the US is like dealing with a restless child. Every time they put the toys back in the pram, the US throws them out again. And then, like a child, after throwing them out, they cry because they want them back. That's the US policy right now. China now has all the toys the US wants. EVs, but they've sanctioned them. Solar panels, but they've already been sanctioning them for years. They're now priced out of the range of ordinary Americans. Automation, but the US doesn't have the manufacturing capacity to use that automation. And now we also know that many Americans would like to share in China's social media because they've found that TikTok is better than their homegrown versions. Xiaohongshu is a great alternative for when they decide to close it or Americanize it. But they want to ban them now. Americans want to use affordable and efficient AI tool, which it seems only China can produce. And they're talking about banning that too. So if the US wants to decouple from China, that's okay. It's going to prove impossible to do since they've never sorted out the supply chains to replace what they get from China. But more importantly, it won't affect China too much because the products that China has are very useful to the rest of the world. Investors who know this, and they're still coming into China. Those people who know will, like me, be watching the Guangdong High Quality Development Conference with a great deal of interest. Why are we doing that? We're watching it because it's important for the future. Thanks very much for watching my take on China again, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.